that they've been giving mixed messages to the banks. On the one hand, they're saying we want you to loan more. On the other hand, the regulators are going out there, perusing their books and saying, no, you can't loan more. You got to tighten up. I've talked to perfectly fabulous businesses in this district who've never had a credit problem, who are getting their loans called in. They haven't defaulted. They haven't done anything. But the regulators are considering them too risky now. We've got to get rid of, now they've told them to get rid of mark-to-marketing, which is where they, on paper, downgrade the value of a property and then tell the bank because the property is no longer worth what it was when you made the loan, you have to call in the loan. Well, that's just crazy, because if they're paying off the loan, it doesn't really matter what it's on the books for right now, because everybody knows that property values are depressed. But what they're doing is they're forcing people to pay off these loans because on paper it looks like they're not worth what they were. So this is a real problem. And as I said, they're working at cross purposes. And I keep reading financial news that says the problems that are coming up with commercial property are going to be even worse than what we've seen with private individuals. And I am very fearful of that based on what people have told me. I've had in my office this past week the commercial real estate people, and they were telling the same horror stories to me that I've heard from others. And I know from other people's personal experiences, even individuals who, again, are just trying to refinance to get a lower rate, they're having terrible times. So we've got a real problem here. People asked me the other day if I had a plan for how we could bring jobs back to this country. I do. I think it's very simple. All we have to do is lower the corporate tax rate. Manufacturing right now, all jobs are extremely mobile. We've seen that. You know, all these call centers are in India now. Manufacturing's moved to Ireland because their corporate tax rate's 15%. All we need to do in this country is lower our corporate tax rate and reduce rules and regulations. Of course, the Obama administration acts like it hates business and industry and anybody with any money, and so they are persecuting those people, and they're going to drive more business and industry overseas. This ruling on the CO2 by the EPA, that was what I was reading during the break. I mean, it's an unbelievable thing what Henry Waxman is trying to do, and what the EPA has done. And this article that was in the Wall Street Journal by Kim Strassel rightly points out, the media paid no attention to it. Well, one of the reasons the media paid no attention to it is they release all this information on a Friday afternoon. They've been very clever. All of their bad news they release on Friday afternoon when they know it's not going to be picked up by the mainstream media and get any attention, because by Monday morning they have a new story on their hands. So, I mean, they have been absolute masters at how they've played the press and how they've played the public. If the public really understood where we are going in this country with this administration and this Congress, I think you'd have a lot of people frightened. But, I talked to a high official yesterday in Alexander County. I was in Alexander yesterday, who said we simply have too much complacency in this country. People are relatively happy, even though we have high unemployment. As long as one person's working and folks are able to do their normal lives, they're just not going to get concerned about what's happening. And it's that old thing about putting the frog in a pot of water and turning up the heat a little at a time. Pretty soon you've cooked the frog, but you're doing it little at a time, and people aren't noticing.
Well, I had wondered, Ms. Foxx, if the government wanted to do something to really help the American people, instead of doling out trillions to the banks and to Wall Street, why not suspend the federal income tax withholding for a while and let that much money, more money, go into the middle class paycheck? But it seems like there's never anything involved that actually immediately results into the middle class. And what is going to happen when all this money that's being printed out of thin air finally gets into circulation? Aren't we going to see the more devaluing of our dollar and then go into inflation?
Absolutely. I don't think there's any question about that. And people have been warning about this for a long, long time. We have a terrible situation with that. And it's going to hit. We know it's going to hit, and it's going to be devastating to middle class and older people because their money's going to be worth a lot less than it is now.
Well, Virginia, one of the things that I keep reiterating here on the Real News Radio, and I'm sure some of our listeners get tired of hearing it, is how it was actually under the Clinton administration we had the Financial Services Modernization Act, which, of course, allowed commercial and investment banking to consolidate, actually leading to a majority of this crisis. We always hear about the Bush administration deregulating, but it was actually under Clinton that a majority of this happened. Of course, Lawrence Summers being the architect of this, and now he's actually right back in the Obama administration, in charge of fixing the situation that he actually created. I mean, you could make this stuff up. What is your take on this?
He can't stay awake during the meetings.
Yeah.
You noticed that, don't you? He had to wake him up in the meeting the other day because he can't stay awake. But he... I think it's a terrible. Almost all the people in the Obama administration are recycled Clinton people, and that's what we've got. I don't know that I have as much of a problem with letting banks do both commercial and personal loans. I think what you have to do, though, is, again, make sure that they're not doing these risky kinds of things. We really don't have the kind of regulation we need. We need to really revamp our regulation. We're going at it the wrong way, and the regulators, frankly, are pretty poor. They're subject to looking the other way or to becoming complacent. We have a lot of mediocrity in our government, particularly in areas like that. And those are the kinds of things that we need to be looking at. I want us to make sure that we don't stifle the free market. And too many times, again, we've got the government determining what happens in the market. It's not a free market anymore when you're regulating down to pens and pencils they can use. It's not exactly that bad, but I'm trying to make a point. And we've got to think about the way we regulate in our country. We just do it the wrong way. And there have been lots of people who've written about how it should be changed. I won't try to go into the details here, but we have to change that. There are a lot of things we're doing that need to be revamped. I tell you, I'm sick about the SEC, just absolutely sick that it would allow somebody like Bernie Madoff. That's the other kind of thing I'm talking about. We just when you get things set up in government, before you know it, they get complacent. Before you know it, they get corrupt. Maybe not in the way that they're taking money directly, but that they just don't have the same zeal for doing what they should be doing.